I'm BJ Stasio, the Advocate's Advocate, and welcome to Self-Advocacy in Action. And today we're talking about person-first language. I'm here today with my guest, Mike Rogers.
Hello.
Thank you for coming, Mike.
Not a problem.
Sam Floyd.
How you doing?
And Mike Giddings. How you doing today, guys?
Pretty good.
Great.
Pretty good.
Doing good.
Now, Mike, the first question is for you.
All right.
Would you mind explaining a little about what person-first language is?
What I understand people-first language is just treating people as people and not labeling people. We have in the past have a tendency of labeling and having different terms that we use. And from my understanding is it originated out in the West Coast, out in Oregon, where people with disabilities were at a conference and they were discussing what terms or what labels they want, or people with disabilities wanted. And the fact was they didn't want any labels. They wanted to be treated as people first. And I think that's where people-first language started. And I think from there, I think it's developed into a movement across, I think, the country and actually the world in terms of people being identified as people and not labeled as someone with a disability or labeled by their disability.
Pass it in this state of New York in August 1st. So hopefully we'll see some changes. Now, Mike, how do you feel about person-first language?
I think it's great because, for example, all the time when I'm going places, they say, oh, the wheelchair is coming, and I'm not a wheelchair. I may use one, but that's about it. So I think putting the person first, it shouldn't even have needed to be a law. It should just be natural. But if we need to help people along with that, that's what we need to do.
Sam, how do you feel about it?
I think person-first language is something that is going to grow and take over as a way of identifying oneself, because of the fact that when you say I'm an individual, you're saying something that's person first. You're putting yourself first. You're saying, I'm an individual, I don't want to be called a symptom of my disease, or I don't want to be called a disability, or I don't want to be called anything that has to do with something that does not define me.
And Sam, you brought an interesting point yesterday. You came to talk to me about it, for example, about the word that we all want to change, the word consumer, as far as that goes, about the medical model. Would you mind sharing that?
Yes, we were having a conversation about whether or not the word consumer would be used if it was used in the medical model, would it be accepted if it wasn't used in the medical model? And we said no, because any word used in the medical model is not something that defines us. It doesn't define me because it's being used by doctors and social workers and things like that to define me. But you should say Sam. You should say Sam Floyd if you want to talk to me. You shouldn't say, oh, that consumer, because of the fact that if you really want to get down to it, I am not going to let someone else tell me who I am.
Yeah, and I will point out the original intent for the word consumer was by Ed Roberts, an advocate just like all of us, was to identify a population, but government decided to put it on the word records to make it easier to bill.
Yeah, can I follow up with
Yes.
that, BJ? And I think you're right. That's exactly what happened. And once you start receiving, quote, services or bill, then that word takes on a whole nother connotation, and it has to be used to talk about regulations or to make it clear of what regulations are doing, and so it has to be used. They come up with terms so that legally or regulation-wise, it's clearer. And I think that's the confusing part of it.
The word.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sam.
The word consumer was used because of the fact that we're supposed to be buying our services, but we're not actually buying our services. Our services are being forced upon us, are given to us. And when you do that, you take away the power of the word from us. You take the power from us and just give us something and say, okay, here's a word that's supposed to be yours, but we're taking it from you and we're going to just use it anyway and make it look like it's still all good.
Well, see, part of the problem, I think, as well, is the fact that when people start using language, it starts being accepted by the general community as being the right thing to say. Yes. And a lot of people don't realize that it's not the right thing to say.
Just another thing with consumer, 2 points, I guess, would be consumer was used back in Germany during World War II as a consumer of services and a consumer of Hitler's regime, and it was used as a bad connotation back then. I mean, none of us were born then. I was pretty close, but the word consumer was used as a derogatory term to say that people were consuming products. So we really don't want someone consuming products. So that was one thing. And Sam, you mentioned the medical model, but again, expand upon the medical model, pardon me, which I think we're trying to get away from, because I think the medical model always insinuates that you need help or you need to be cured. And the medical model, I'm not sure, is the best example or the best policy to use in terms of people with disabilities. And I think there's confusion there as well, that some people with disabilities, because of their disability, need to be fixed, and then using the word consumer, I think, doesn't help that.
Well, I like to always say that when I receive aid service or give physical therapy, something like that, I don't even consider it a service. I consider them helping me out with living my daily life, and they're interacting with me. So I mean, part of it, I think, is that we're trying to put everything into a context that you have to name it something because these people are receiving services. Well, I think we need to get away from that idea where we all need to live together and work with each other instead of saying this is a service we're providing to those people, that type of thing.
Do you think person first language will work over time?
I think it will, and I agree with what Mike is talking about. I think the more we treat each other as people, again, and I think that's where people-centered language comes from. We're all people, with a disability, without a disability. There's so many types of disabilities. But I think it will work. I think it's a sensitivity to what, and under a term of respect, I think, more than anything, because when a term is used and it gets a bad connotation, it's just used because of a regulation or because of some other services being received, it segregates or it separates people, and that's exactly what you don't want. You don't want to separate people. You might want it for regulation and for funding, but you've got to get away from that and look at it as people first.